Welcome to the Champagne Diamonds podcast. I am your host, Nadine Russell, and I'm so glad you decided to join me today. This podcast was created for queens, women who are ready to step into their power, women who are looking towards their vision and embracing the journey along the way. Women who are ready to be unapologetic about being their authentic selves. If this is you, keep listening. Hey Queen, what is up? Welcome to episode number 7 of the Champagne Diamonds podcast. I am super excited to be here with you today because, wow, episode 7. I'm a little bit floored. I'm a little bit shocked that we're at episode 7, right? So I really appreciate you guys tuning in every other Thursday to share this time with me, to be a part of my podcasting journey. I appreciate you more than words could ever say. And this week, we are going to be talking about who is your villain. That's the topic this week. Who is the villain in your life? Because here's the truth. We all have villains in our life. And some of us may feel like we have more than others. But let me be completely and totally honest. There is one particular villain that can really make us or break us. So we're going to be diving deeper into who that villain is and just seeing how we can shift our mindset to be able to overcome the different struggles and obstacles that villain tries to put in our path, because we are overcomers. We are empowered women, and we are going to rise above all obstacles that are put in our way, because that's just what we do. That is just what we do. As you guys have already heard, if you've been listening to me for a while now, I have a beautiful community of like-minded queens that like to come together and share their experiences and their journeys. And I post a lot of great content. Some IG Live replays can be found in there as well. That is not on Instagram and that I don't have anywhere else. So definitely feel free to tap in to the Queen class by visiting me over on my website, www.enticethebrand.com. So let's go ahead and get into it, shall we? So all of us have a villain. There's many villains in our life. And for some of you, the thought that might have come up for you when you're thinking about who is my villain, who is the villain in my life, might be, the typical villains that we all have, and there's a lot of different ones. So I'm going to break down a few here before we get into the last villain that this episode was really made to expose. Okay, we're here to expose this villain today. And when we expose this villain, we're able to take this villain's power away. So here's some of the villains that you might be familiar with. We have the villains who are the haters, the people that are just not about us. They don't like us. They don't want to see us win. They don't want to be around us. They just don't like anything about us. And they will purposely find ways to try to bring us down. They will purposely try to come against us, no matter if they want to come against us with slander or they want to talk bad about us in front of other people. They want to spread rumors about us. They want to try to bring us down and make us look and feel so small. So for many people, that might have been the first villain that came to your mind, is the villain that we find in people that just have no desire to see us win at all. People that don't like us, that have never been our friends, that never want to be around us, that are just like, I don't know what it is, but I just don't like that person. And a lot of times It's jealousy, but sometimes people just don't like people. One of my favorite quotes is that you can be the juiciest peach and there will still be individuals who just don't like peaches. It doesn't matter. You know, it doesn't matter if you have been doing all the right things, if you are the nicest person in the world. It doesn't matter what you do. There are just some individuals that don't like you, and there's nothing that you can do that will change their opinion. And guess what, guys? That is okay. That does not matter, because that person's view of you doesn't define you, and it doesn't change who you are as an individual. As long as you know that you are someone who is interested in the well-being of others, you are someone who is minding your business, you are someone that is intending the greatest good for all people, then you ain't even got to worry. You ain't got to worry about the people that don't like you, okay? The other type of villain. Let's talk about this other villain. The other villain, and we're going to keep this kind of broad, but the villain is the people that you do know. The people that maybe you spend time around them. Maybe they are your friend or were your friend, or they're a family member. There's someone that has access to you, and maybe they just don't support you. Maybe they, want to see you do good, but not as good as them. Maybe they just kind of stay around you to see what you got going on. Maybe they're just around you to try to, gain access to you or gain access to things that you have access to that they can't gain access to on their own. Maybe it's just because, they just kind of have to be around you. But that could be another type of villain, because sometimes these people will be the ones that you expect to support you that don't support you. They'll be the ones that you will give the shirt off your back and they won't return that favor and do the same thing for you. They'll be the ones that will expect you to support them and help them, but they won't extend that same courtesy to you. These are the people that don't really match your energy. They always expect you to overextend and overgive and do the most at their request, but they would never, ever come to you with that same energy. They would never overextend themselves to you. They would never try to help you just out of the goodness of their heart. They're always approaching you with some sort of ulterior motive. They don't really truly want to see you win. So that could be another type of villain that is in your life. And you know what? Both of these villains suck. Both of these villains are terrible. And, I'm not saying like, oh, cut them off, get rid of them, because that is something that every person on their own personal journey has to experience and discover and recognize, which boundaries they need to set and who they should be giving access to themselves and whose access should be limited or denied completely. And that is all on each person's own journey, separate, different. No two people are going to have that same experience. So I'm not about to give advice in that area at this moment, but definitely feel free to reach out to me if you want to dig deeper. But what I can say is that I've had both of those villains in my life. And although those villains did slow me down, even though those villains and their actions were crippling to my success and my ability to move forward, they were not the main villain that I had to really watch out for. Yes, of course, I had to be aware of them, but they were not the biggest villain that made the most difference in my life. So let's dig a little bit deeper when it comes to villains. Sometimes a villain in your life can literally just be a situation, an obstacle, something that you are faced with, a challenge in your life that you have to be confronted with or that you're dealing with. This could be anything from financial struggles to being in the wrong place at the wrong time to, the color of your skin. This could be your religion. This could be your gender. There are different things that you might be limited in accessing on your journey because of who you are. Strictly because of who you are, there are things that are creating barriers to your success. And that can feel like the biggest villain of all, because it can feel like you are in a war against the world and yourself. And it's not easy to go through a feeling like that. It's not easy to feel like, you are against all odds and you have no way to win when it feels like your back is against the wall. I've experienced that many times for many different reasons. I remember one time I was modeling, and I had been doing freelance modeling for a while. And a part of me was like, okay, I want to try to book more gigs, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go to an agency. And I had been to a few agencies prior when I had first started my modeling career. And I decided to, do the freelance for a little bit, gain more experience, be able to work with who I wanted to work with, and then go back into looking at different agencies. Because my first agency, that'll be a story for another time. So I went into this one agency, and I'll never forget how that agency owner sat down with me. We decided, the type of jobs that I was looking to book, all these things. We went through everything, went through the walk, went through my profiles. He looked at my comp card, looked at my different photos, and he came back to me and he said, you know what, Nadine, I have to be completely honest with you. He's like, I 100% want to sign you. And if you are ready and you are committed to working with this agency, we definitely want to have you on board. I am ready to sign you right now. But one thing that I need to let you know is, because of where we are location wise and the types of clients that we get, I don't want to waste your time, because you are not going to get a lot of bookings based on your race. Because right now, the race that's in, are of Asian descent. So you are not going to be getting a lot of bookings. So that kind of choked me up a little bit. I was like, okay, it's all good. It's all good. So I said, let me think about it and I'll get back to you. So I went home and I pondered that situation. And again, the story is a little bit longer, which we'll get into at a later date. But out of no fault of my own, was I not necessarily the best fit for something simply based on my race, something I could do nothing about. So I could have looked at that as a villain and looked at myself and decided to dislike myself because of who I already am. But no. That is still not the villain that we're talking about in this episode. But we're getting closer. We're warming things up. So the villain that I do want to talk about, the villain that is the biggest detriment to you moving forward in life, the villain that is most likely holding you back from achieving the obstacles or overcoming the obstacles that you want to overcome so that way you can achieve the dreams that you want to achieve. That villain is the person you see every single day when you get up and you look into the mirror. The villain is you. I am my worst villain. You are your worst villain. And sometimes it may not feel like it, but the truth is, it is what it is. We become our worst villains. And not because we necessarily want to. It's because we have this internal programming that has been programmed to keep us safe. But the thing is that this programming is a little bit outdated. Our subconscious mind has developed these beliefs since we were young children. And a lot of those beliefs are locked and loaded. And until we start recognizing what those beliefs are and doing the work to overcome those beliefs, doing the work to shift those beliefs, doing the work to get super clear about what it is that we believe, that villain will continue to keep us captive. That villain will continue to hold us back. That villain will be the one that is going to tell us all the ways we're not good enough. That villain will be there to remind us that it's too risky. That villain will be there to remind us why we can't. So today, I just really want to challenge you. How will you deal with this villain? How will you take action towards learning how you can overcome this villain? Because you can't fight it. Resistance is not always the best case and form of action in overcoming this villain in your life. The best case of action that I have found to overcoming this villain is sitting with this villain. You know that saying, it says, keep your friends close, but your enemies closer. That's what I want you to consider when you're dealing with your biggest villain of all times. I want you to consider spending time with that villain, sitting with that villain, asking that villain why it has those beliefs. This is when we go into things called inner child healing and shadow work, where we spend that time learning about that villain. What made that villain so villainous to begin with? What made that villain believe those beliefs? This is that mindset work. This is that personal development work. And let me tell you, it is not some overnight work, baby. Let me tell you, I have been on a personal development journey well over 10 years. And some areas, some nooks and crannies that I still find myself looking at like, oh my goodness, there's still so much further to go. And that's okay, because it's not a race. It's a journey. And the only way that we're able to look at this villain and overcome and to win against this villain is not to fight the villain, is not to resist the villain. It's to become friends with the villain. Recognize that this villain is really just a scared child that is trying to protect you. And when you start recognizing that, you'll start loving yourself more. You'll start taking better care of yourself. You'll start listening to yourself more. You'll start challenging those limiting beliefs that come up. And you'll start getting really clear and wanting to understand what this villain is really trying to tell you. Because it may not be there to hinder you and keep you stuck the way that we think that it is. It might be just there asking you to reconsider and to think things through and to help it understand why what you want to do now is better for you at this point in time in your life. So that is all that I got for you for this episode 7 of the Champagne Diamonds podcast. I appreciate you. I thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks. Take care of yourself. Be good to yourself. I love you, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Champagne Diamonds. I look forward to seeing you again in the next one.